and welcome. I've got some weird and wonderful projects to share with you today, so let's get into it. Right, beginning with what I'm wearing. This is the first ever largish shawl that I've ever knitted, and it is by a designer called Isabel Kramer, and it's called the Malibu Shawl. As soon as I saw the shawl, a picture of the sample on social media, I coveted. I was reminded of the song by Hole, also called Malibu, and this prompted me to look up satellite images of Malibu, California on Google Maps, and sure enough, I think that it was the idea was the place Malibu, because you have the lagoon, Malibu Lagoon here, and I guess I'm interpreted it as the red roofs of houses and buildings. And yeah, I really love this shawl. If I'm being honest though, the knitting was a bit of a chore. I think because you begin at the top here with a garter tab and the shawl gets bigger and bigger as you knit. I think it was the combination of, you know, the increase in size plus you're knitting flat, so that means of course hours of purling on the wrong side, which is a bit of a ick for me. But I was so stoked with the final object, so I guess the slog was worth it in the end. So thumbs up to the Malibu Shawl. Right, so let's go through the yarns I used for the shawl. The recommended yarn is, I believe, a Tibetan yak base, but I decided to go with wool for this. For the main colour, I used 4-ply, 85% Blueface Leicester and 15% silk, which is by Eden Cottage Yarns, which is a British brand. I've had this in my stash for quite a while, as it was a gift from my mother-in-law, so I'm very happy that it's gotten the chance to go into a project that I will cherish. And the contrast colours, I actually specifically bought yarn for this project, so that just goes to show how much I wanted to have the shawl in the colourway simple, the colourway that I saw in the sample. But I used Garthenor Organic, the Priselli range, and can you see that? Yeah, it's coming out okay. I used one skein for each colour, and this is 75% Polworth, 15% Romney and 10% Hebridean. Yes, in the colourway Baked Crimson and Cadet. Okay, a lovely bonus. My husband has been getting into whittling and made me a shawl pin to go with my shawl, as I've been experimenting with how to wear it. So he recovered this from the forest floor and whittled it down, so I've got this cute shawl pin to wear. Right, the second finished object is my Scrappy Pants. It's really difficult for me to show you these, so I will insert some footage, but as you can see, they're hella long and a bit too long actually, but I am very happy with them. The pattern is the Rhoda Pants by Drops Designs. I customized them. Well, I modified them by adding a waistband for security and support, and instead of doing decreases for the leg shaping, I opted for increases, so that I could have flares. I actually used to wear a lot of flares in the early 2000s, like we all did, but I think that I like the shape of them, but I think they're not that practical for everyday wear. I would say that this was a pretty chill knit. It was satisfying to use up the odds and ends of bits of yarn I have been hoarding for years. After reorganising my yarn a few months ago, that you can see here in another video on YouTube, my stash is streamlined and I know exactly what I have, which is very handy for when inspiration hits. It also felt like a bit like colour therapy, picking random colours to knit with and how long to knit with it for, depending on the mood. The colours and shape of the trousers don't make them practical for everyday wear, but they are cosy and warm, and I can always steek them so that they have a straighter leg at a later date. Or I can leave them be as an art piece garment. So this is my third finished object. No, really. It's for my husband. We had a bit of an incident. Okay, I think he garnered the idea that I could cut hair during the pandemic because I would help him to shape up his beard or cut his hair during the pandemic, during lockdown, because we weren't going anywhere, so it was fine, it was fun, right? But a few weeks ago, he asked me to help him tidy his beard, right? So I said yes, not knowing what I was really getting myself into. He handed me the clippers and said, "Can you do this?" With his hands like this. Can you just help me like this? And so I took the clippers, held the clippers horizontal and cut. And I had cut a huge chunk out of his beard, and I guess, by judging by his reaction, that's not what he wanted. He was not best pleased. He was quite upset, and literally his beard. He's always had a very full beard, and I think it's part of his identity. He was upset. He was quite sad, and he flippantly said, "I think you should knit me a new beard until mine grows back." So I did. So he had wanted me to hold the clippers vertically, not horizontally. But surely you would do this. Can you just shape it like this? Not like that? Miscommunication, marriage. Anyway, right, it's quite warm. Anyway, this is a free pattern by Verily Knits, and it keeps your face warm. It's quite nice. I can see why men and those who identify as men might want to grow one. Anyway, moving on. No, not moving on. One last thing. The yarn that I used for this was woolly knit cone, woolly knit, woolly knit cone, and some kid silk mohair from Drops. The yarn that I used to have a ranunculus knit in some black woolly knit cone and some kid silk mohair by Drops, but it didn't like it, so I frogged it, and I'm getting a lot of use out of this frogged project, because I have a whip to show that I'm using, and I knitted my husband's beard, and my cats get a lot of use using the yolk as a pillow. So my cats have expensive taste. Okay, so my first whip, using again the same yarn as I used for the beard, and I am knitting a beanie. So this is the what's going on here? So this is the simple beanie by Pearl Soho. So far, actually, except for this pattern, every pattern that I've mentioned today is a free pattern. And they all can be found either on Ravelry or Pearl Soho's website or Drops website for free. So I am knitting the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho. Yeah, I've only just started what would be, I guess, the brim of the hat. Okay, so my second whip, well, it's not really a whip, to be honest. It's more like a sample or a swatch. So this is inspired by the London Underground moquettes. So this is actually the seating, inspired by the seating on the London Underground, the District line, and some of the buses in the 90s in West London where I grew up. So this is very reminiscent. I actually wanted to create a cowl or a scarf, but I decided to do a swatch to work out the best way to do it. So far, I am just casting on 12 stitches, no, 6 stitches, 6 stitches, and I one by one rib, and I'm actually sewing them together. So it's not the best, most efficient way, but I didn't want to use intarsia because it would be really messy, and I would need to do intarsia flat. And yeah, I'm not too sure the best way to do this, and I'm not really sure what I'm making. So please comment below if you can think of a good way to do this, where I need to have specific coloured blocks next to different coloured blocks. So I don't really know, but I really want to make an item because this is the iconic colourway for the seating on the buses and for the tube trains, and it just reminds me, it's very nostalgic for me of Transport for London in the 90s. So this is it's called the Misha Black Moquette, named after a very iconic engineer and designer who was quite responsible for a lot of the design in London historically. Yes, so if you're like me and interested in history or design and photography, there is an amazing photographer called Bob Mazzer who used to travel on the tube taking photographs, people watching of people, on the London Underground, and weird combinations of people, like punks with old people, or it's just a real good documentary of London life, London street photography, but in the London Underground. I will put a link to some of his work and articles in the show notes. I must get better at doing adding things that I talk about in the show notes. So yeah, so stay tuned for my improvement. Yeah, so check it out, and please comment below um, what I could make with this, and a better way to doing color work in blocks. So I'm using inexpensive yarns for this. So this is one skein of Drops Nord. This is Drops Merino. The black is Woolly Cone, and so is the amber. So I'm having a lot of fun playing around with these colorways. So let's get into acquisitions. It's just the one today, a woolly cone. So even though like I love to have new hanks and skeins, I find it quite stressful knitting a whole garment from skeins of yarn, because you never really know how much you need. And I've experienced running out of yarn when I've used skeins of yarn, and it's stressful to reorder or buy a whole massive chunk of skeins of yarn for a project, because you never really know how much, and you just don't get that with cones. So I kind of consider it as a staple. I have quite a lot of different colorways as cones, which come in 500 grams, and it's just, for me, I can get 2 full garments most of the time holding it double from 500 gram cones. So I think for me that's a comfortable and affordable way to knit and always have yarn available to play with. So this is the newest edition. This is from a company simply called Yarn on Cone. It's a British company, and I actually managed to pick this up for £19 with free shipping. So yes, please. So I'm quite happy with it. So this is a burgundy, and it's 100% wool, 4-ply. So yeah, I have a plan for this. So do consider subscribing to my channel if you would like to see more. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and chilling with me for a little while. I really enjoyed putting this together for you. So yes. Hey, why do pine trees make terrible knitters? Because they're always dropping their needles. Thanks for watching. Peace.